Hello, welcome to the dark side of the library. I am your host, Carrie, with my creepy co-host, Katie. And
Hello.
I apologize in advance. I have had a nasty cold, so you might hear a little bit of coughing during this long discussion of dark nonfiction that's coming out January 2024. We have not read these books yet because they're not out yet, but we are excited to check them out. And Katie's going to start us off with her first dark nonfiction book of the month.
Yeah, and before I begin, I just wanted to mention that if you also are interested in any of these books, make sure to check out our show notes at darksideofthelibrary.com. They are affiliate links, so we do get a small commission if you do purchase any of these books, so thank you. But the first book I am very curious about is, ironically, The Broke Witch. It's magic spells and powerful potions that use what you can grow, find, or already have. This comes out January 23rd, and it's by Deborah Castellano. This looks really, really nice. I know a lot of witches, we've been struggling a little bit, and we are on a budget. So it's time to de-influence witchcraft. So this is a book that talks about cultivating your practice with using the things you have without all of the abundance. We don't need to buy new rocks or new ingredients for things. We probably have a lot of these things in our homes already.
I love this because there's been a criticism of modern neo-paganism where people are trying to buy their spirituality and, oh, I wish I could cast the spell. I have to go buy a new crystal. No, you don't. I love this.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that sentiment. This book has a few things in here. So one, it says discover bewitching rituals, recipes, ingredients, and tools for every budget, which is also really nice. You can infuse everyday habits and activities with powerful magic. Learn which magical materials you can swap in a pinch. So maybe you don't have cinnamon. What can you use in replacement of cinnamon?
This is great.
It's perfect. So this is a really cool book. I think it's relevant, and I totally agree. I think magic is within all of us, and we can do magic our own way. So this is a really cool book. This is called The Broke Witch by Deborah Castellano.
Katie, do you like starting off the new year by reading cheerful books?
If you mean by depressing, absolutely.
Well, then you're going to want to read The Cancer Factory, Industrial Chemicals, Corporate Deception, and the Hidden Deaths of American Workers.
Oh, yes, I love those books.
It comes out January 23. It's by Jim Morris. It's the story of a group of Goodyear tire and rubber workers who were fatally exposed to toxic chemicals, the lawyer who sought justice on their behalf, and the shameful lack of protection that our society affords all workers, which is super true. And we probably need to read some books about Amazon warehouse workers that bring us all these books.
Yeah.
So this is a dark nonfiction book that's going to be depressing, but it's kind of important to know that this goes on because the people that were working at the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company chemical plant in Niagara Falls, it's an industrial manufacturing job that allowed blue-collar workers to thrive in the last half of the 20th century, but it was also the kind of job that gave you bladder cancer. Ugh.
Oh my God.
It was one of the nation's worst outbreaks of work-related cancer, and they found a lawyer who represented the bladder cancer victims at the plant. And it's a story of corporate malfeasance, governmental neglect. Workers have only weak protections from exposure to toxic substances in America, and regulatory breaches contribute to an estimated 95,000 deaths from occupational illness each year. Whew.
Wow. Oh.
So it is an important read. It's not going to be a page turner. This is the kind of book I want to read and know about it, but it seems like every chapter I'd have to step away for about a day.
Yes.
Oh, that is The Cancer Factory, Industrial Chemicals, Corporate Deception, and the Hidden Deaths of American Workers by Jim Morris.
Oof. My next book is called Crimes of the Centuries, The Cases That Changed Us. This came out January 16, and this is by Amber Hunt. This is a pop history deep dive into some of the impactful crimes, like very infamous and some that were very little known, that have shaped the legal system as we know it. And this ranges from like the Salem witch trials in the 17th century all the way up to now, how DNA has influenced how we've reestablished our legal system a little bit, and how we approach different crime scenes. There are plenty of examples of serial killers that somehow talked their way out of legal systems in the 60s and 70s, which still amazes me. And they didn't go, I mean, they went on for a very, very long time, still committing their crimes. So this is a really interesting book. This is about 384 pages, published by Union Square and Company. So if you love studying crime, maybe if you're doing a forensics major or a poli-sci, this might be really fun to read and very interesting because it's a short period of time, but we've done a lot of reevaluating how we approach crime cases like this. This is called Crimes of the Centuries, The Cases That Changed Us. This is by Amber Hunt.
That will be very interesting.
Yeah.
My next book is Fungi. Discover the science and secrets behind the world of mushrooms. It came out January 2. It's by Lynne, Boddy. You can discover the fascinating stories behind 300 species of fungi and understand the world of mushrooms like never before. Did you know that fungi put the fizz in champagne and the flavor in chocolate? Fungi is everywhere we look, in a forest, under the sea, and in the kitchen. In this beautiful book, leading fungal biologists Lynne Boddy and Ashby bring you closer to 300 species of mushrooms and lichens through fascinating facts, mushroom data sets, and detailed illustrations. Discover some of the fastest speeds in nature, specimens that glow in the dark, and fungi that can clean up oil spills. Whoa! It seems like this is maybe aimed at children. The publisher is DK Books. It's Fungi, Discover the Science and Secrets Behind the World of Mushrooms by Lynne Boddy and Ashby.
My next book I'm really excited for. I hope I can make some time for it. It's a mystery from the Mummy Pits, The Amazing Journey of Ankh-Hap. This is by Frank L. Holt, and it's published by Oxford University Press, but it's only $24, so I was impressed. As the world recently commemorated the 100th anniversary of the discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun, I think I said that incorrectly, but I tried. Our fascination with the pharaoh begs for a balanced view. Most Egyptian tombs are not royal. Most were never carefully cleared and documented. Most have not had their occupants treated with respect or returned to their sepulchres, and most recovered mummies have not escaped the modern trafficking in ancient bodies and body parts. The story of Ankh-Hap, mummies seized in the 19th century from the infamous mummy pits of Egypt, provides a salutary example of what most mummies have endured. So Frank Holt makes use of the robust combination of scientific tools and archival research to tell the story of Ankh-Hap's life, death, and his mummified remains, which ended up back in the American college classroom. It's interesting because I do think a lot of us just assume that mummies were like all of them were pharaohs, or that they were all royalty and they were all treated so well, and they were all stored in really wonderful places. But yeah, it is kind of interesting to see the other side of this. So this is a mystery from the Mummy Pits, The Amazing Journey of Ankh-Hap. This is by Frank L. Holt.
My next book is The Other Side, a story of women in art and the spirit world. It came out January 2. It's by Jennifer Higgie. It's the first major work of art history to focus on women artists and their engagement with the spirit world. I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
The publisher writes, it's not so long ago that a woman's expressed interest in other realms would have ruined her reputation or even killed her. And yet spiritualism in various incarnations has influenced numerous men, including modernist artists such as Kandinsky, Mondrian, Malevich, and Paul Klee without repercussion. The fact that so many radical female artists of their generation and earlier also drank deeply from the same spiritual well has been sorely neglected for too long. I definitely need this book. So in the other side, we're going to explore the lives and work of a group of extraordinary women, from the 12th century mystic and artist Hildegard of Bingen to the 19th century English spiritualist Georgiana Houghton, whose paintings swirl like a cosmic Jackson Pollock, the early 20th century Swedish artist Hilma of Klint, who painted with the help of her spirit guides, and whose recent exhibition at New York's Guggenheim broke all attendance records. We're going to meet the desert transcendentalist Agnes Pelton, who painted her visions beneath the vast skies of California, the Swiss healer Emma Kuntz, who used geometric drawings to treat her patients, and the British surrealist and occultist Ethel Coloquin. I don't know how to say that. How many of these artists had you heard of? I had only heard of Van Bingen. Wow. I've got to get this book. This is The Other Side, A Story of Women in Art and the Spirit World by Jennifer Higgie.
That is cool, and I'm excited to hear about it and see it. I'm sure it's a very visual novel, too, I would imagine. My next book is a very scholarly novel. It's not even 200 pages.
Hang on. These are not novels.
Sorry.
Sorry.
My next book, I apologize, is Slavic Witches and Social Media. This is $170 right now. So it is very scholarly. This is cool, though. I have a friend who is Polish, and she has been experimenting with kind of like that neo-pagan-esque. It's very focused on Slavic mythology and religious or Wiccan practices. But it's interesting because the study talks about the influence of social media and the analysis between contemporary neo-paganism and Catholicism. Catholicism is huge in Poland, and she tells me when she was growing up, that was a huge obstacle that she had to go through. She didn't really identify with a lot of like Catholic practices, and she was very fascinated because there's still a lot of these Slavic beliefs within Poland. She was very interested in those traditional beliefs, and she dove further into that. Social media has made it easier for people to engage in those practices and those beliefs and talk to each other more about Slavic practices and beliefs and Catholicism and how that's influenced them in Poland. So this book is dedicated to scholars that are in the field specifically of religious sociology, digital religion, and ethnography, with a deep fascination for exploring folk magic and Slavic traditions and their adaptation to the emerging digital landscape. It is interesting because some of these neo-pagan practices were solo things that a lot of people did. We were very spiritual people, but now with social media, it's easier to connect with people that have things that we want, very specific things like Slavic beliefs, and now we can talk to other people that have similar spiritual practices across the digital realm, which is very
great
cool.
For people who felt isolated in their worship in the past.
Yeah, it's awesome. And this is a very cool study. If you are somebody who's studying Slavic mythology in particular and social media or just religion, this book will be very helpful. This is Slavic Witches and Social Media. This is by Marta R. Jablonska, and this comes out January 23rd.
My next book is Vampires in Silent Cinema. It is a $110 hardcover, scholarly book by Gary D. Rhodes. Despite the enormous cultural impact of Nosferatu back in 1922, from cartoon parodies and collectible toys, but the history of vampires in silent cinema is largely unknown. It covers the subject from 1896 to 1931, reclaiming a large array of forgotten films while adding meaningfully to horror studies through the examination of thousands of primary sources. The publisher is Edinburgh University Press. This sounds like it would be a good book to check out in your library's reference area, because most of us are not going to have $110 to have a scholarly work, although very important. So that's Vampires in Silent Cinema by Gary D. Rhodes.
I'm really excited for this next one. It is called The Weirdness of the World. This came out January 16th. This is by Eric Schwitzgebel. How all philosophical explanations of human consciousness and the fundamental structure of the cosmos are bizarre, and why that's a good thing. Do we live inside a simulated reality or a pocket universe embedded in a larger structure about which we know virtually nothing?
You're hurting my brain.
I'm sorry. It's a lot easier to read this versus, I think, hearing it. So it also asks, is consciousness a purely physical matter, or might it require something extra, something non-physical? So according to our author, who is also a philosopher, it's hard to say. In this book, our author argues that the answers to these fundamental questions lie beyond our powers of comprehension. We can be certain only that the truth, whatever it is weird. Philosophy, he proposes, can aim to open, to reveal possibilities we had not previously appreciated, or to close, to narrow down to the one correct theory of the phenomenon in question. And our author argues for a philosophy that opens, which I can agree that. I think that's fair. So according to the, quote, universal bizarreness thesis, every possible theory of the relation of mind and cosmos defies common sense. According to his complementary, quote, universal dubiety thesis, no general theory of the relationship between mind and cosmos compels rational belief. Might the United States be a conscious organism, a conscious group mind with approximately the intelligence of a rabbit? I just love how bizarre this book is. It's so wild. So this book is weird, but it does ask some really strange and fun questions about human consciousness, the cosmos, and it's surreal. If you are somebody that enjoys that sort of book, this would be really fun. The publisher is Princeton University Press, so it is a scholarly book. This is The Weirdness of the World. This is by Eric Schwitzgebel.
My final book today is called What's Wrong? Personal Histories of Chronic Pain and Bad Medicine. Another cheerful read for the new year. This one is by Aaron Williams. It comes out January 23. It's an utterly riveting, deeply moving, absolutely molecule-rearranging exploration of pain, writes Leslie Jameson, the author of The Empathy Exams. So, the author, illustrator, and scientific researcher Aaron Williams has a graphic exploration of how the American healthcare system fails us. She focuses on 4 raw and complex first-hand accounts, plus Williams' own story. The book examines the consequences of living with interconnected illnesses and conditions like immunodeficiency, cancer, endometriosis, alcoholism, severe depression, and PTSD. Western medicine intends to cure illness and minimize pain, but it often causes more loss, abuse, and suffering for those Americans who don't fit within the narrow definition of who the system was built to serve: cis, white, heterosexual men. The book explores the many ways in which those receiving medical care are often overlooked, unseen, and doubted, especially women. So the publisher of this book is Abrams Comic Arts, because it is illustrated, but we can't call it a graphic novel because it's not a novel. It's nonfiction. It's What's Wrong? Personal Histories of Chronic Pain and Bad Medicine by Aaron Williams.
And my final book for today is Witchcraft, A History in 13 Trials.
Ooh.
So this is by Marian Gibson. This came out January 16. It already has a decent rating on Goodreads and on Amazon. So this is a fascinating, vivid global history of witch trials across Europe, Africa and the Americas, told through 13 distinct trials that illuminate the pattern of demonization and conspiratorial thinking that has profoundly shaped human history. So some of these trials that they use are famous, like, of course, the Salem witch trials. But then there are some lesser-known trials, for instance, in the 1620s, on Vardo Island in Norway, an indigenous Sami woman was accused of murder. And there's a ton of different examples, 13, obviously 13. So this book explores how witchcraft became feared, decriminalized, and reimagined, and eventually reframed as gendered persecution. And this book takes on the intersections between gender and power, indigenous spirituality and colonial rule, and political conspiracy and individual resistance. It offers a striking, dramatic story, unspooling through centuries about the men and women who were accused, some of whom survived their trials, and some who did not. Witchcraft empowers the people who were and are victimized and marginalized, giving a voice to those who were silenced by history. I personally, speaking of buying witchcraft and whatnot, I think it's really important to understand the history of witchcraft as well and be a little more educated and not buy silly shirts like we are the ladies that you didn't burn or whatever. Really, So I do think Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that is kind of disrespectful, I think.
It totally is, because all these people were victimized, and some of these people weren't even practicing witchcraft at all. So definitely take a look at Witchcraft, A History in 13 Trials. This is by Marion Gibson. And I believe we are finished with our list of nonfiction reads that we found really interesting for January of 2024. Happy New Year. So if you are looking for more books to read that might be fiction, YA, kids books, we do publish every Wednesday and Friday. Join us on our socials at Dark Side of the Library and our Amazon Live channel, where you will see us live stream. We do more than just books. And that is at amazon.com/live/Dark Side of the Library. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you in the next live stream or podcast episode.